Welcome to Game of Thrones off-season here at the AfterBuzz TV studios. On today's episode, we'll be discussing fashion in the Game of Thrones world, who wore it best, and the best and worst dressed. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes. Let's just let that play out a little bit longer.
Amazing.
It's only once a month now that we get to hear this, unless you play it in your car
Just
in the
randomly.
shower like I do.
Like I fall asleep to it. I don't know about you guys.
I wake up to it.
Oh, that makes sense.
It is dreamy. It's such a dreamy song. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Game of Thrones off-season, where we get together every month to discuss the latest Game of Thrones news and discussions. I'm your host, Ryan Malaty, and joining me today is an extra special guest, Xia Anderson. Welcome to the panel.
Guys, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk Game of Thrones. I miss it.
I know. This is the perfect place to do it, though. It's really all we got until next year.
Absolutely.
But we also have the perpetually lovely Kristen Snyder.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here. I really feel like I should have been more fashionable today, but I did drive an hour to be here to talk about the fashion, so that was sort of my time to prep that I would have been putting on a bunch of different clothes and jewelry, but I'm here, so...
You were fashionably late. Does that count?
Yeah. I think that counts.
Awesome. Well, I'm stoked to talk about costumes and wardrobe and fashion in the Game of Thrones world, but first, let's talk news. Because we meet here every Thursday, last Thursday of the month. There it is. And there's always stuff going on. So what do you got for us, Kristen? What's going on in the news world?
We finally have heard that Season 8 is going to premiere
Tell me.
first half of 2019, said President Casey Boyles of HBO's programming. So that, I guess, means in the first 6 months, we can look forward to it. Don't have a date for you.
So Bloys
But
said
in the
first 6 months, but that's all
it's
he said.
happening. Yeah, so
we
we
know
might
it's-
get episode 1.
You know, every other season has kind of started in March and April. Mm-hmm. So maybe
Almost a year.
maybe then.
Right.
At least it's not June, because last time we reported it might be June. So at least it might be before June.
It's coming.
A
That's
little
news.
under a year.
That's news. That counts.
Definitely.
Awesome. What about you, Zia? What do you got?
We've got Bloys also mentioned in an interview with Deadline the upcoming work on the prequel series.
Yes.
Getting
okay.
a prequel, guys. The pilot script by Jane Goldman, who did Kick-Ass and Kingsman.
Mm-hmm.
Loved Kick-Ass, by the way.
It was
And-
kick-ass.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
It was very well done. The story is by Goldman and George R.R. Martin, and the story takes place 8,000 years before the Game of Thrones series.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Long
8,000. If you think about our human history 8,000 years ago, there wasn't much going on at all,
No,
really.
not
Right?
at all.
I mean, I'm sure there was, but we just don't have a lot of a written
They
record of it.
forgot to write it down.
A lot of well, the Bible, I guess, right, talks
Yeah.
about some stuff that went down.
Some rumors.
Some rumors. Rumor has it. But that's anything else?
Yeah. So it is there's no current actors will be in the prequel, which makes sense because it's 8,000 years before.
Sure.
But it will feature strong female leads, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's described as chronicling, quote, the world's descent from the golden age of heroes into its darkest hour. And only one in this is for sure, from the horrifying secrets of Westeros' history to the true origin of the White Walkers. The
Ooh.
mysteries of the East to the Stark's legend. It's not the story we think we know.
Excellent.
Doesn't that sound so exciting?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. You know, my first impression was, I'm gonna be honest. My first impression was like, prequel. Like, how could it ever live up to the show that we've fallen in love with over the past however many years? But that sounds pretty badass.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
that
lie.
sounds cool. So, I mean, if it's telling us the origin of the White Walkers, I've always wanted to know. We don't really know.
Yeah, we've gotten kind of a flashback.
little bit, yeah.
The children of the forest kind of thing,
Stabbing
and the Night
and-
King.
yeah.
But yeah, I wonder.
There has to be more to it.
My first impression is that everyone's just wearing rags.
Well,
For
yeah.
8,000 years prior,
years
you'd think that
and living in caves.
they just have like furs and stuff on.
I guess we'll find out. I mean, they're ageless. If you look at their current fashion, I mean...
Which we will be.
I'm excited about that. It's like they don't have any wrinkles. They appear to not really have an age. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happened, what made them that way.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I guess they're filming the pilot early next year as well.
Awesome.
But it's kind of just still up in the air. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We got season 8 to look forward to. So Well, thank you guys for the news update.
Yeah.
Let's jump into today's discussion, which is fashion, costumes, wardrobe. It's something that really does help tell the narrative of Game of Thrones. It's an intricate part. It's something that I noticed very early on when watching the show, is just how unique and intricate and beautiful, and it just helps you dive into the world and become part of it. When I bring up Game of Thrones fashion, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I mean, for me, I feel like the clothing really tells the story, because if you just gave us, like, someone brought in a costume from the show, we would probably be able to guess if it was, like, a coastal city, where they lived, what part of the world it was from. We could possibly even determine who it was, because the clothing is so characteristic towards the role and the person playing, and their characteristics are all throughout their wardrobe. And so I'm just really excited to get into it and talk about the individuals and how their clothing really reflects who they are in this world.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's cool because you also see it change throughout especially Daenerys. You see it change so much from the earlier seasons to the later seasons, which I'm a big fan of what she wears in the earlier seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's cool. You see it progress as the characters also progress and go to different places. You see the wardrobe change, and I think that's really cool also.
Excellent points. I was thinking about different ways to organize this particular episode, because you're right, there's so many different ways you can talk about it. You can talk about from different seasons perspective, as a particular character evolved. You can talk about different regions. Kind of did a little bit of mix of both. We're going to be talking about, and when I say best dressed and worst dressed of a certain region, it's not necessarily that the fashion is bad, because it's meant to be what it is. The lead costume designer, Michelle Clapton, who worked on the show for the first 5 seasons, is a genius. Her and her team of over 100 people spent numerous hours and money creating these intricate costumes of every character. Every episode has, I guess, at least 100 costumes. Not as much detail on the extras as the people with speaking roles, but her team just did an incredible job. So when we say worst dressed, it's purely from a perspective of fun, and if we were sitting on the red carpet, like Joan Rivers used to do.
Right, if you were trying to get dressed up, would you wear it?
Exactly.
Not so much.
Exactly.
For some.
So let's start off with the North. Let's go up to the North and see what the fashion is all about there. So up in the North, it's cold.
Yeah, it's more medieval.
Yeah.
It really does seem that way, doesn't
absolutely.
it? They're wearing a lot of dark colors. They're wearing a lot of furs. Not a lot of fashion going on.
Well, they're not on a coast, so they can't trade and be colorful. Like those colors would come from different places, and they don't live on a coast, so I feel like it's harder for them.
And it's almost, and you even look like at the royalty, the Starks. They're even dressing really modestly.
Well, and also it's very cold a lot of the time, so you have to dress for function, because otherwise you would die.
Very practical.
Yeah.
Like we're going to wear layers
Right.
and furs, and it's going to be dark because dark colors stay warmer.
Right.
Because they absorb the heat of the sun. Yeah. So they really think through everything. Well, let's go through our best of the North. We're going to go with Jon Snow. I feel like he's consistently worn beautiful black colors.
Yeah.
It matches black hair.
I like the black.
And he's got the cloak, and it has I'm sure they're very heavy, and I think that probably helps him in character feel like he's very powerful. I mean, even looking at him in the photos that we have up, I mean, he just it gives him broader shoulders, and I'm sure just the weight of it makes him stand taller to feel like he needs to carry it. And if we're getting really into it, he has been carrying the weight of this world on his shoulders, feeling like the protector of it. So.
Absolutely. Very good.
We're getting really deep.
Yeah, get in there.
If we're, if you will, shedding layers.
No, like an onion, a fashionable onion.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
I mean, I think his best costume is obviously when he was brought back to life and laying on the table.
So when he was wearing nothing.
Birthday suit.
She did a great job with that one.
We didn't get a picture of that, and if for everyone listening over iTunes if you want to see the images that we have, because it is fashion. It's hard to
visual.
imagine, but if you can use your memory, fine. But if you'd like to go to our YouTube page, go to AfterBuzz TV's YouTube and check out the science or sci-fi fantasy channel. Subscribe to that and watch us there. Yeah. So yeah, Jon Snow, he has a way of kind of stepping out of the shadow of his father and having his own kind of style. Pragmatic, strong, and black.
I
it.
like the black.
I do too.
Did you guys know that whenever they arrive at the wall, whatever they arrive in, they dye the clothes black?
They dye them black.
So whatever they wear,
Yeah.
they keep wearing, they just dye it black.
Yep.
Oh, I like that. That is cool.
And Jon Snow came prepared, but most people don't.
He showed
knew.
up with black. He's like, I already got you guys. Don't worry about it.
I like him. And even though he's only half Stark, I think we can count him as one of the most fashionable in the Stark family. I'm also going to give the other best dressed to Sansa.
That makes sense.
And it makes sense, right?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
she's always had this interest in fashion. She makes her own dresses, right? She's always kind of been more interested in that part of the world of fashion than her sisters and her mother.
She also travels a lot more than the rest of
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
so she's had to change her attire depending
She's a
on
lady.
where.
Yeah.
But I loved like the dark Sansa.
Yeah. All right. So what do you like better, the Sansa from the White Wedding with Ramsay, right? Or I guess let's talk about the Sansa with the White Wedding with the feathers, the white feathers, or the Sansa from when she was Littlefinger's sidekick.
I'm always
with
gonna
the black.
I'm always gonna
black
go
hair.
dark.
You like the dark?
Only because like women in power, that was like her most powerful, time that we've seen her, and I like when women take charge, when it comes to, I know we're not at Cersei, but Cersei always seems, even though she's not wearing armor, it always seems like there's metal on her dresses, and it always seems like she is wearing armor, and I like that. I like when we see females in powerful clothing, and I think that when she went dark, she became a more powerful woman, and it gave her a different kind of power, so I think for me, that was the best she's ever looked.
Yeah, she definitely stood on her own 2 feet when she came out with wearing those dark colors, and yet she still kind of resembled a Stark with the big shoulder pads. The Starks like to wear stuff on their shoulders for warmth, for power.
High collar as well. They always have high collars, I've noticed.
So she's got to be the most fashionable person in the North, I think.
I have to say, this is not about clothes, but her hair is always on point also.
Yeah,
Sure.
And they've
that
dyed
counts.
it different shades too. Like
Yes.
they've dyed it darker with the dark
Darker,
Sandra. They made it a little lighter depending on where she was.
Right. It's almost that her hair got lighter as her innocence was seemingly, there, and then it got darker as it went away. And then it finally settled on a true brown red like her mother once she found her home back in Winterfell.
I like that.
Yeah. So good.
We always
Sansa,
get back to our natural self, right?
Yep.
We always come.
We always
full
find a
circle.
way, yeah.
We go many different colors, but we get back to what we were born as.
So they're living in the cold, but they're doing all right. Let's go with the worst dressed. I'm sorry, guys, but the wildlings. What are you wearing?
Listen, whatever I find, okay? I'm a
Just
wild
a
one.
bunch
the
of
star-
furs to
yeah.
stay warm.
Well, there's a way to wear fur,
This is not it.
and this is not it. Look at them. Bunch of hodgepodge,
Just throw
raggedy.
it on. It doesn't matter. Just be warm.
You can still be warm and be fashionable, okay?
Not
It's
there.
possible.
Not there. I would look awful there.
Yeah,
I mean, when
I feel
I'm
like
cold,
it's
it's
too
like
cold there.
Yeah.
I feel like
like-
Tormund Giantsbane, his clothes are just going to fall off if he turns too quickly. They're just going to rip apart.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure they're all sewn together very well. I think they are just wearing different pieces of skin in varying layers.
Yeah.
But like you said, or like she said, it serves a purpose to keep you warm because it's like really, really cold up there. It's not just like, oh, it's a little chilly out, or oh, it's cold enough for some snowflakes. It's like if you're outside for too long, you will die. And they have to, they have fur wrapped around their boots and string wrapped around that. Like they really have to stay bundled up.
And let's face it, if your name is the Wildlings, you can't exactly be laced up properly.
Right.
Okay?
Also,
You're
I
all
don't think they
wild.
care.
No.
Still the worst dressed. I know.
Well, talking about
You
like,
know?
You're not wrong, but yeah.
They're not wrong. but they're poorly dressed. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
They don't care so much about aesthetics,
Yeah.
and that's fine. And they might survive a longer winter than the people dressed in Dorne. But the fashion police are here, and that's what we're talking about today.
Listen, they provide the most mystery for when it comes off. Okay.
You know what's
you can't tell their
interesting?
shape or anything.
You remember when Jon Snow and Ygritte were in the
exactly
waterfall?
what I was thinking.
That's what you're thinking of.
Cave.
In the cave when she slips off her furs. There was nothing underneath. I thought there would be layers. I thought there would be like another linen underneath that, and then
This
underneath
day
that.
there wasn't.
Yeah, she played.
was ready. I think
She just slipped off her fur, and that was it. That's all that was between her and the wall was just a fur.
I don't think that you put these people on this list, but they remind me of the wildlings, and their wild attire is the children of the forest. They just sort of look like they rolled around in leaves and feathers, and they're like little tree people, and I just love that. They're just so like naturally in their element, and they're sort of wild and in that category, but I would say they're my favorite dressed, not best or worst, just my personal favorite.
I do like their look a lot as well. Yeah.
Honorable mentions are encouraged. So whenever you think I missed something, fine, throw it in there.
Throwing it in there.
The other worst dressed person in the North, I'm gonna have to go with Arya. And I know, Kristen, she's like your favorite character ever.
No, that's fine. I would agree.
But she's just poorly dressed. She doesn't care.
Doesn't care at all.
Even when she wasn't trying to pose as a poor begging boy.
Yeah.
And she had her freedom back. She still chose to dress like a raggedy taggedy.
That's
because
part of who she is.
Yeah, she likes to dress for fighting, which is that's all she wants to do. She wants to be the best fighter. She was always wanting to train with the boys, and you got to dress to be comfortable for that.
I guess, but we're
look nice.
gonna move down to King's Landing here in a second. But like, there's some fighters who are pretty fashionable.
True.
I mean,
was
look,
designed that way.
I mean, Oberyn, fashionable.
Is he on this list? Because we must talk about him.
We will, but he's not. But we will.
But one more thing about Arya is I just remember when we first met her, her and Sansa were just in similar dresses, and her arms, like Sansa was all like, prissy and like very proper and laced up correctly, and then there's Arya in a quite similar dress with the arms ripped off and it laced up, just kind of thrown together in knots and not tied properly.
Yeah.
So I was just like, it was going downhill from the beginning.
Yeah. They tried to like, the king's coming. The king, come on, guys, dress him up, and Arya didn't enjoy that process of being dressed up like a doll. It's not who she is.
Nope.
And
She's
that's
still
fine.
in probably opposition from that, with her just throwing on rags.
That's why she went so far the other way.
Exactly my point. Yes.
And if this was a list of best and worst fighters, she'd be on the best side. But it's best and worst dressed.
Worst dress.
She's on the worst side.
Okay.
All right, let's move down to King's Landing. I think, and I didn't include the, the Westlands or the Stormlands or the Vale or any of these other kingdoms, because I think that all it really comes down to is King's Landing.
Okay.
King's
well,
Landing
they
is
all
the
visit
epicenter
there.
of fashion.
Right.
I think everything kind of trickles down from there. In an interview with Michelle Clapton, she actually said that that's kind of how she designed everyone else in the court's fashion, and everyone from there kind of trickles down from the most prominent figure, which would be the royal family. Mm-hmm. So when you see in earlier seasons Cersei's, low-cut, attire, you'll see that if you look closely, everyone else in the court is kind of wearing the same kind of thing. But then as slowly throughout the seasons, as power transitions from her to Marjorie, you'll start to see people kind of dressing more like her. Uh-huh. And so a lot of thought was put into that, and that's kind of how it works nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah,
Right.
that's absolutely
When
realistic.
you look at America's royal family, the Kardashians, I guess.
Yes.
Be the closest you could get, yeah.
I mean, it's all about fashion trends, right? And the ones who are in the most prominent position to set those trends do. And then it trickles down from there.
I think I just heard that, like, not to get into this, but was it Kylie or one of them, just they are making, because of their, like, fashion line and makeup line, they're making as much as, like, Bill Gates right now or something.
Kylie is due to be the youngest billionaire, I believe. I think is what it was.
Yeah, with a B.
Self-made billionaire is what it was. I don't know if she counts exactly. Possibly, maybe. But yeah, self-made. Yeah, with a B. Billionaire.
Could you imagine if one of the Game of Thrones characters like started their own line of
Marjorie was like,
armor or
beautiful
something, you know?
summer dresses.
Yeah,
They should.
they probably do. There probably a lot of dresses come out of High Garden, you know, or fantastic silks from Dorne or whatever it may be. Yeah. But so for the best dressed of King's Landing, it was really hard to narrow it down, but I'm gonna go with just all the Lannisters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Lannisters just
They're so regal looking.
They
They
just
dressed so
know.
regally.
they just know how to do
Yeah.
it. Cersei, especially.
She's like a mix of like a kimono, like very sleek, like form-fitting, and then with a touch of like medieval. And like I was saying, it
Yeah.
always seems like she's wearing armor, even though she's not, because there's lots of like little metal and stuff on her dresses.
And that's another one that changed throughout. When she had long hair versus
Oh, yeah.
when her hair is short, also was very different because it used to be more feminine. And then as time went on and you know her hair got cut, she definitely started taking on that more powerful role and definitely dressing that way. She's like, I'm tired of being messed with. Can you tell?
And that's another example of how the costumes in this show shape the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah, she went from dress, and then if you see in this picture, she literally has like chainmail and some armor
She
on her
does have
shoulders.
some armor, yeah.
Darker colors, no longer caring so much about being a fashion trendsetter, trying to stay young and stay queen-like. It became, to be queen for her became a different kind of, it meant something else. It meant tyranny, it meant power. And nothing says power more than
I mean, she looks like she's a
Black.
commander at this point.
Yeah. And this is after season 5, after Clapton's departure. April Ferry became the new lead costume designer, and gotta give credit where credit's due. Michelle Carragher, she's the principal costume embroiderer. So we'll throw up some pictures of some of the embroidery on the Lannisters, especially Cersei's clothing, is just incredible, to the point where they'll zoom in and there's tiny little skulls of beads that you would never notice in the actual show because, you know, you don't get that close. But the attention to detail is just exquisite. Simon Brindle is the costume armor supervisor, so he supervises the armor across the show, but I would especially like to point out Jaime Lannister's armor is, oh my god.
Yeah.
So good.
Whenever he lost his hand, I heard that they literally spent like 30 days, a ridiculous amount of time, like making that metal cast that like Cersei had made for him.
Yeah.
And it had touches of like a dress that she had worn.
Yeah.
They included that in, you know, making that casted arm, and that they had to like make it around his hand and then hammer it together. And just what a process it was for that one piece, like 30 days.
Even Cersei mentioned, I spent days on it. He's like, days? He's like, bet a pot of an afternoon. You know? but yeah, even his hand, his fake hand, is the most fashionable thing to be seen in the town. You know, whether Jaime's fighting or not, or he's dressed up. And I would have to say, though, that the best dressed in armor would go to the Kingsguard. But I don't like the gold cloaks. I think they look silly. They're the ones with the chainmail that hangs in front of their face.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you.
The gold cloaks who guard King's Landing.
Yeah.
I don't like their look at all. But I do. But the Lannisters' personal army, you know, the ones that with the red and the gold lion on their shoulders, that's dope. For lack of a more technical term.
I like it. I'm down with it. And Marjorie, of course, would always wear, you know, the roses because of her house.
Because of High Garden. And they wear, and it's a little bit warmer, more temperate zones, so she wears more, you know, loose-fitting gowns.
That's what I personally like.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could wear her clothes now, just around, I would.
I was going to say.
I would wear those. If I had anywhere to wear that to, I would wear it.
I would too. I wish it was more socially acceptable to wear. You wear something, you know, like, all right, just throw it out there.
You
just
can
to finish
if
it
you're
up.
that kind of person.
You absolutely can.
For the best dressed for King's Landing, in my opinion, is Joffrey.
All right, so especially this picture that you have up of him,
That's
heard.
Tommen.
Oh, that's Tommen?
That's Tommen and
Oh,
Marjorie.
well, maybe this was Tommen's crown or Joffrey.
Here's Joffrey coming up with looks like with Cersei, and there's another one of Joffrey. He has this this like arm cape thing going on. You know, where each arm has its own cape. I thought that was so cool. There's even a scene, if you remember, when he was with his fashion designer, and he scolded him. He said, "No flowers."
Oh yes, I remember that.
very
And
manly.
then he knows what's fashionable and he knows what's not. He's setting trends. He's wearing this cool arm cape thing. I think Joffrey was the most fashionable person in King's Landing for the longest time.
It definitely fits his personality. He's like, I can't just have one cape. I'm going to need one for either arm, please, and thank you.
And it's just the gold and the sash and he always looked his best. And I think that all the young boys in King's Landing wanted to look just like him. I know I did.
You were like,
He was a
speaking
monster,
for myself.
but the best dressed monster you'll ever find.
I'm just gonna stay quiet on that one.
I'm less of a fan
I
of
hated
it.
yeah,
It looks
everything
like
about it.
drapes.
Yeah.
Like it's like
Stop
he was
wearing
wearing
curtains,
drapes.
Joffrey.
Yeah. Sorry.
Give your mother her curtains back.
Wow, really? You think they're curtains? I think
I
that
see
sorry.
curtains.
no capes.
He's literally blocking the sunlight from my life, this character.
I think that capes should make a comeback, personally, in our society.
You could start it. You could start
I could
the
if
He
I-
did last year at Comic-Con.
I wore
Oh,
a cape
that's great.
everywhere. At every party, Kristen couldn't get me to take it off.
Yeah, it's true.
It was even in situations where it just wasn't appropriate to wear a cape.
You still had a cape
I
on?
wore a cape.
I mean, look, with some of the other fashion trends that are out now that look very ridiculous to me, personally, I think a cape is less ridiculous. I think you could get away with that.
Thank you,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Xia Anderson. Capes are where it's at, and I think personally, Joffrey wins the cape battle of the world.
Alright, that's
Let's go.
fine.
Let's talk. If you guys are so hyped on criticizing some fashion, let's talk about the worst dress in King's Landing.
Okay.
Starting off with Bronn.
Yeah. He's another one. He just doesn't care.
No, he's like he's in the
Yeah.
same category as Arya because it's like he's all about the fighting. He wants money to kill people, not to go buy clothing.
No.
And you know what's funny is that after he did get a lot of money from Tyrion mentioned, why don't you dress better? He's like, cause capes slow you down, you catch the light, and until he does mention how it's all about fighting, but then later you see him dressed like a lord.
Yeah.
After he's given up his fighting ways.
his fighting time.
You remember that when he dressed all
Very-
nice?
And wasn't somebody making fun of him for being a fancy lord?
Yeah.
Was it? Oh, who was that was making fun of him for it? But I'm pretty sure there was a scene where they were like, "Oh, it's a fancy lord now," and he's like, "Yeah, well, I
feel
got
like-
a
I
woman."
think it was Jamie who
It
called
was
him out.
Jamie, yeah. I think you're right. It was Jamie.
Because Jamie kind of reverted back into this very simple, plain way of
Yeah,
dressing.
Very logical.
Whereas before, when he had both his hands in this position of prestige, he would wear the most luscious leathers you could find.
Very intricate carved, armor.
And that goes.
amazing.
Oh, it does. And that was after. This is what we're looking at here. Is what the Kingsguard changed to after it was no longer Baratheon rule. After it was Lannister rule, I believe.
Makes sense.
Because every time the king's name changes, it's like kind of like a White House thing. When a new president comes in, they gut it all and they make their own statements.
Right.
Same thing with the Kingsguard and how they dress in their armor. Also, on this worst dressed list, I put the Maesters.
I mean, they're kind of just in robes.
I know.
right? I mean,
But like
looks
such
like a
shabby robes.
they're in and out of the bathtub. That's what makes sense.
You look at Maester Pycelle right here.
Yeah.
He's even tugging at his own robes. He just can't even stand it. I mean, I know they're supposed to dress humbly. They're like monks. They're
Right.
supposed to give up their their ties to material. But like they wear the dopest chains. At the
really
same
bad
time, that's
ropes.
kind of like their only goal in life is to
Yeah.
accumulate some dope chains. But they don't have the robes to match. You look at any Maester.
And it also does look like they've never been washed. Like,
Exactly,
this is
such
dope.
shabby robes. Maester
Yeah.
Aemon, Maester Pycelle.
It's true.
They're all just kind of, they wrap this big burlap sack around themselves and say, I'm a man of knowledge. I'm a man of, I'm a man of the books and the
They're
scrolls.
not distracted by the colorful things in life.
I
But
know.
they could get ones that are maybe more softer and more comfortable.
Thank you. Like a silk.
Yeah, because they were just wearing it over bare skin. That can't feel great.
I know.
There's just something a little more flowy, you know.
Like I understand the meaning behind it,
Right.
but I gotta say, even the High Sparrow,
Oh, he was
and
the worst.
he was like sarcastically underdressed.
Yes.
And he was still on the same page as the Maesters when it came to their robes. I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
Thank you.
He was dirty too.
I'm sorry to also call out Podrick.
Oh, see, I disagreed with you on this one.
Tell me why.
I agree.
I think
with you.
that, he wasn't like he looks still like pretty well put together. He's got a
Yeah.
nice fur collar. It's not all furs, just on the collar. He's clean. It looks like middle of the road, but nice. It's not like very fancy, but he's still. It's well made.
Yeah, we've got Brienne and Podrick here in the photo. It's
Yeah.
like Batman and Robin. Like he's clearly mimicking her.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, Pod.
Also, I met that actor, and he is the sweetest man.
Is he?
Yeah, he's so nice. I can't. I love him too much.
Yeah. Did you ask him what happened in that?
No, I just told him I
In
was
that
excited
scene?
to see him in the next. Oh, you mean what? Like how big it is? Like how are you so good? Like it has to be something like that.
Kristen, she's looking at me like, what are you talking about? Or maybe why are you talking about it? But there was that one scene where Podrick, was given a gift from Tyrion to go into the whorehouse and have his way with whoever.
Money. Yeah.
And then they didn't accept the money.
Because,
And then they have that scene where they pour him wine and they're like,
Right.
details, tell us everything. And then they never do.
Right,
But you just
you
assume
never
that he's
know.
a spectacular lover and you just like don't know.
that smile he gets on his face, that like goofy smile. I
Yeah.
should have asked him about that. What was I thinking?
Obviously his clothing. So
It's-
why is Shay on here? I mean, she did the best she
Okay.
could.
Shay is on here
I
Because-
agree too, though.
because Shay.
I think she looks great.
It's pretty.
I-
She's doing the best she can
Yeah.
for herself.
It's nice fabrics.
It's meant to be taken off quickly, right?
Well, yeah.
That's
but-
how all my clothes are, just
but-
because of comfort. Like, I just
Absolutely.
want to rip them off as soon,
As soon
as
as
possible.
you get home,
Yeah.
boom.
I know she's supposed to look modest and stuff, especially posing as a handmaid. I just didn't. Maybe
You're
it's
not
just because I
into
don't
it.
like Shay.
Yeah, I
Maybe
don't
it was like a
think you do.
subconscious thing where I'm just like, girl, that robe is. But I
It's
don't know. I feel
not
like she.
the other families. Okay, she's got her own thing going on.
And
This
you
is
know-
probably something she made with whatever she could get.
And it's very pretty.
But she,
for
after
lack
she was
of a
taken
better
under the
word.
wing of the Lannisters, I guess both of them, Tywin and Tyrion, she still chose to wear it. And you think it's indicative of where she's from because she's foreign and she's from somewhere
Yeah,
sunny and warm.
definitely. You get used to
You
the
can't get used
feeling
to it.
of those clothes.
You can
Yeah.
definitely spot. You can tell if you just show a random character, like you were saying. You show a random character on the screen, you could tell what part of the world they're probably from
Exactly.
based on what they're wearing. Same with our society, a little bit.
And that's her sort of maintaining herself and staying true to her character despite being somewhere else.
Yeah.
She's a whore.
Not everyone knows. The Hound, I mean, come on.
Okay, I'm saying this because the Mountain was dressed. It looked really cool,
Yeah.
right? But the Hound has this armor that's just falling apart, and maybe it's just because he's big and tall, and you can't
Yeah.
find anything to fit him.
He has to piece it together one piece at a time.
Yeah. But it just seems like he also doesn't care. But I feel like he's dressed. I mean, come on, he's got like this burnt up face. At least dressed to impress a little bit.
It certainly isn't cool armor. Like, he's
No.
not like, oh, I'm wearing this really cool, awesome armor. It's more just like, I've got this armor. Let's go do this thing. Give me a chicken.
But
Yeah.
that's exactly the point, though. It goes along with his character. I mean, he's
Yeah.
kind of riff-raff. His face isn't all there, so we can't expect his armor to be either.
I know. Just wish he tried a little harder, that's all.
I
like-
like a little more fashion from the Hound. Come on.
I like the way he just throws it all on there, and it works for me.
mean-
I'm into those scars, I'll tell you that. I'm into it.
Nice.
And once again, every single character is dressed so appropriately to their temperament, to where they're from, where they're going, who they are. So it all is brilliantly done, and it paints the picture so intricately, brings you there, and makes you believe it's all true, it's all real.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's something that we love about this show, is that it's just so honest.
Pulls you right into its
And
world.
It does. And what's really neat too is that this isn't necessarily historically accurate stuff. It looks like it could be. It looks familiar. It looks like that's something that could exist, but only in this world that we've been shown.
Yes.
It's not necessarily how they dressed in medieval times, but you can definitely imagine that if this world exists, this is how they would dress.
Right.
So everything's done brilliantly, but he just looks like crap.
Whatever. I'm excited to go east. Can we go east?
Yes,
yes.
yes, we can. Let's go east.
I mean, Daenerys
Obviously,
is another one.
Daenerys. Let's talk about Dany. Let's talk about Daenerys. When we first meet her, she's dressed in whatever her brother put her in.
I mean,
to
she
sell her off.
comes
She's very
from
innocent.
a rich family, more so. Coming from riches, looking all stylish.
Very silky, very innocent. Her innocence was still intact, and so she's wearing like this like kind of white, breezy thing.
Yes, again, very low cut, very open.
Silks and
Very seductive, but still resoundingly innocent.
Yeah.
yeah.
But then real quickly it goes into after she mounts her man.
I mean, we throw her in the tribal life, okay? And it's like she's probably never sweat a day in her life until she got to, the tribe with Khal Drogo, and that's gonna change your character and your mindset, and it clearly turns her into a warrior.
Yeah.
I loved her Dothraki look. You got like this scaly thing that's almost like a prelapse or a premonition to her being a mother of dragons.
Definitely.
You kind of have this, this leather, very practical, very warrior-esque, very Xena.
Yeah.
Xenon.
Yep. Speaking of Khal, though, I did meet him this past weekend.
Jason Momoa?
Oh,
I met Jason Momoa.
Did you go to EW?
Yes, I went to EW Party, Entertainment Weekly, and I'll be posting that on my gram later on this week. If you want to check it out, I'm at Cinematicscape. I know we're going to do that till the end,
Wait to
but
see this.
No,
you gotta see.
I can't wait to see it.
I mean, he was so nice. I just,
yay.
you never want to like interrupt them too much when you see them, but somebody else had just taken a photo, so I felt like it was a good time to like capitalize on that.
Sure. Yeah.
And I just, told him that I really appreciate his work, and he was like, "Oh, thank you," and he genuinely meant it. And his trainer goes with him everywhere. If you guys don't know this, and literally will like, if he drinks a beer, he has to do like 20 push-ups for drinking that beer. So his trainer was there and was nice enough to photobomb our photo and slip his face in between
That's
ours.
awesome.
So it's a pretty awesome photo, and I'll be posting it later this week.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. But how was he dressed?
I will say he was dressed overall very relaxed. He had an amazing ombre going on with his hair, like with the highlights. He's got his like
got the
Aquaman film
Aquaman
now.
thing going on. Yeah.
And he was like slick t-shirt, little like Hawaiian, the sign that they do.
Yeah.
The Shaka.
Is
Shaka
that what
bra?
it's called? The Shaka?
It's called the Shaka.
Shaka bra.
Yeah, so yes,
Yeah.
he was posting that up
bra.
in the
Very
photo.
cool. Well, speaking of Jason Momoa, Khal Drogo, I think, was the best dressed
Yes.
Dothraki there ever was.
He had those like leather pants that were
Yeah.
like laced up, and he wore them the whole time.
And that's all he needed.
Yeah.
And he wore like that golden belt, but it was the one that he used to melt down and then poured the melted gold over Viserys,
Yes. Oh my goodness.
which is an awesome death scene.
Amazing. Yeah.
What a
But
way to go
because he
out.
didn't even care. He's got this golden belt that was probably a gift from one of the towns that the
Right.
Horde went through.
It's worth so much.
He was just wearing it because
Yeah.
whatever.
Can we talk about the way he wore his muscles? Like, that was his shirt. He wore a shirt of muscles that he built and put a lot of time. Like, that is the nicest shirt anyone has ever put time into.
Very true.
muscles and paint.
Very true. It's
Thank
not
you.
there's not just anyone can wear a body like that. You got to work for it.
True.
Gotta work
Yes.
for it.
So it's probably the most man hours were put into Jason Momoa's chest than any other form of
I would say
of
so.
clothing on the show. Although still back to Dany, Tommy Dune is he's the weapons master, but Kevin Alexander is the hair designer.
Hair.
Develops the hair designs of all the major characters, managing 20 to 30 human-haired wigs, which can cost up to $7,000 each. And Xia, you mentioned to me before we started filming that Dany's wearing a wig most of the time.
Yeah, it takes hours for her to get into that also.
And it was so disappointing to hear. I was so crushed.
You're not the only one.
Yeah,
I've
when
heard this from every man.
Yeah, I heard long time ago, but I did think it was her hair for the
I
longest
did
time.
too. I was like, wow, her hair is amazing, white, and it's
Flowy and
it's perfect, but it's a wig.
Yes.
Or a number of wigs. Yeah,
She is in fact brunette, the actress.
yeah, Amelia
Short
Clark.
brunette hair.
She certainly is.
Yes.
But we won't hold it against her. It's
we
still
love her anyway.
that just goes to show the amazing job that
Yeah.
this team does. Because I had no idea she was wearing a wig. You know, and I can't say that I had any idea that any of these things weren't exactly like what they were supposed to be. Nothing looks out of place when you watch the show, except for maybe the Sand Snakes. But everyone, that was a huge. We don't talk about them that much.
No, I love them.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yes, I do. I want to be one, like, in life. Like, dream come true to be one of them. I mean, just talking about, just to ride that wave really quick, is, I mean, they would wear, like, chainmail headpieces. I remember this one time they had, like, leather straps that were, like, really intricate on their shoulders that their hair even covered these straps. But that, I guess the woman who's in charge of all the outfits was really wanted to go details, even though most of the time you wouldn't see them because these details were under their hair. It's just amazing. I love it. And the way they were so comfortably put on and the way they could move comfortably in them to fight. I love the way they were dressed.
Okay, we'll get down to the stuff.
Thank you.
That's fine. That's good.
They were sexy and ready to combat at any time.
But yeah, I know we talked about Dany. I guess just to throw a nail in it, I think she's one of the characters who we've seen evolve most in as far as fashion goes.
Yes.
She's gone to so many different locations on the planet, or whatever it is, in the realms.
The realm, yeah. I like realm.
And so we've seen her evolve from an innocent shroud to Dothraki to the drapes that she got in Karth from Zaro Zoan Daxos, who is also
Zoro Daxos is what I used to call him.
Is Zoro Daxos,
Daxos.
who I also think he was probably the best dressed in Karth.
Yes.
The greatest city
Very
that
colorful.
is or ever was or has been.
Rich. Yeah.
A lot of these men they sort of put in feminine attire, but they wear them very masculinely.
Yes.
You know?
Absolutely.
They do.
There's still those very bright colors and they're very soft fabrics.
Yeah.
And but
And
he's
like cut in at the waist a little bit, like a woman's dress would be.
I don't know if you guys remember, she only really had one or two scenes when we were in Karth,
yeah.
and it was the Quaith. I don't know if you remember her, but we're just going to throw up right here. She's the one who...
armor over her face?
Yes.
Yeah.
She had this armor over her face and told Jorah where to find the dragons, and I thought it was just so cool looking.
It is a very cool face
It's very
armor.
unique.
Yeah.
It's
And-
reminiscent of Hannibal Lecter for me, sorry.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think
A
of
little
that.
bit. But it was just, I think it was the most unique piece of armor that we've seen on the show. That I've seen, and so I had to throw her in the best dressed because it's just awesome.
It's very cool. It's not like she's wearing a helmet. She's wearing just over the face.
Yeah.
Meant to it.
So I loved her. But speaking of Jorah, I'm gonna have to throw him in the worst of the East. He's got.
Yeah.
I love the guy. He's got like this Indiana Jones
Yep.
thing going on. But and he's a manly man.
Stained.
But he's just another one of those guys who just doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's all about practicality. He's either wearing this or he's wearing the armor over it.
Yeah.
Kind of looks
That's
like
all.
lumberjacky to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sort of
Indiana
almost
Jack.
like a V-neck,
Jack.
V-neck sort of sweater. Seems like he just should be cutting down trees in that outfit.
But the
for me.
problem with my issue is that he's rolling with the queen of the world pretty much. I mean, it's not like they don't
Break
have
our
access to finer textiles. He can if he's like, I think I want to upgrade my sweaty, dirty rags. He totally could have.
He's like Braun in that way.
But yeah, he just chose. He knows what he likes, and that's fine. You see a guy wearing a white T-shirt and jeans. Some pull it off, some don't.
He's a simple man with simple tastes.
And I like him for that.
Yeah.
But he's not the most fashionable.
No, not too
Also,
much.
I did not really like anyone in Marines' outfits.
Can we talk? What was the it was sort of the people with the mask though.
The Sons of the Harpy?
The Sons of the Harpy.
Those are cool masks.
I do like those masks.
They were
though.
cool masks, but the outfits that they were wearing, especially all of them wore kind of the same thing. But Hizdar Zolorak, if you remember him, he was kind of like the spokesperson for the other slave masters in
Yeah.
Marine. And here's a good shot of their outfit, where it's just kind of like these robes with this double ring feature in the front.
I like it.
And I don't see any reason why.
Yeah.
It's just you could tell it's just traditional, but everyone dresses like that, probably because the royal families do, and so everyone else does, right? So it kind of just shows how people conform to that. but I didn't really see a point to it. I didn't see. It looked kind of like it looked like a hassle to put on and take off. Maybe it's.
It's like a belt with jewelry on it, like a body belt with jewelry.
A body belt. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. It doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing sleek about it. It's just like it's again like kind of like they tied but a slightly nicer burlap sack on.
Whatever, guys. I disagree with you. I'm loving the body belts.
You love it?
Wrap me up in that body belt.
Hey, you know what, guys? If anyone is listening or watching at home, if you agree or disagree with our, critiques of this fashion show, please leave a comment. We love to read them.
Yes.
And we love to see the heated debates that you guys get into. So yeah, that does it for our best and worst. But I want to play a little game with you guys.
Oh, games! I love the games.
Called Who Wore It Best. Kind of like they would do in like People magazine, on the red carpet.
Yeah.
So let's start off with armor.
Okay.
Obviously, Jamie wore everything best, so we're not going to include him in the armor. But and I know I wrote down here Brienne of Tarth and Grey Worm, but I feel like, and you guys can comment on those, but I did feel like they were too similar, so I switched it up to Jorah and Robb Stark because they both have a very similar kind of outfit.
Okay.
When it comes to armor, Robb Stark had those really big shoulder pads, and so does Jorah. The only thing that Jorah has that Robb Stark doesn't, though, is that big bear emblem right in the middle for the House Mormont.
Yeah.
So
Jorah Mormont.
what do you guys think? Who wore it better? Their armor.
I'm going with Rob.
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
because
say Rob.
it's Ned's son, and I remember him just the way he walked and the way the armor really stood out to me on Rob.
I personally think he carried it better.
The perfect word choice. Yes.
I agree. It was a statement. Those big shoulder pads are very iconic. But one thing bothered me. I don't know if you noticed, but like the edge of the shoulder pads would always get stuck in the leather.
No.
You ever noticed
not
that?
a critique I ever picked up on.
It would always like hang right there in the leather, and you were just like you wanted to go over and adjust it for him. Like, come here, Rob. Come here. Let me just bend this out a little bit.
Listen, I don't mind going over and adjusting it for him, but I didn't notice it being an issue.
Ooh, what about this? I know that Jaime Lannister's just the sexiest armor wearer, but what do you guys think about Sir Loras?
Oh.
The Knight of Flowers. I mean, his setup
It was very
really cool, intricate armor.
pretty for a man.
Yeah.
You can still use pretty for men stuff. Yeah, it was very pretty.
Yeah, and a handsome woman, too.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It was very, very pretty. I liked it. And it, again, spoke to his character a lot, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
And where he was
You see
from.
someone wearing that, you're like, You're a fancy man.
You're a fancy man. He was a fancy man.
All right, guys, let's move to wedding gowns. We've seen a lot of weddings, and we've seen a lot of wedding gowns. And so I want to compare Sansa and Marjorie. And since, Sansa, I think, wins with Ramsay and Marjorie with Tommen. But since they both had a wedding with Joffrey, let's compare those dresses.
Well, I just prefer Marjorie in, her clothing always just sort of seemed to fit her like a glove. Mm-hmm. I see we're looking at the photos now.
She had this turquoise dress with flowers flowing out the back, out of the small of her back, and then spiraling outward and down.
I would get married in that.
I would get married to that.
Right. Like that's it is beautiful. Yeah, I'm going to have to hands down go with Marjorie on that one.
You're right. And Sansa, her heart wasn't in it.
No.
I feel like she just stood there and said yes to anything they showed her. For her wedding dress, she just didn't care.
And again, they look like curtains to me.
They do look like, you're right, those are drapes.
Thank you, Joffrey, for the drapes.
And you know what? It's probably because Joffrey didn't want her to look better than him.
Yeah.
So he's the one who approved the dress.
And it's kind of like a pukey color. Sorry. I don't know if it's just our screen, but I'm not into it.
That dress looks exactly how she probably felt that day. Mm-hmm. So,
Agreed.
all right, cool. Marjorie wore it better. And then the last who wore it best, I want you guys to talk about who wore the color black. And I know Jon Snow's the winner by default, but Sansa or Cersei, when they both came into their black gowns, their outfits.
I like Sansa better in that one.
Yeah.
Just because of where she came from as a character. Cersei, you always kind of saw it. But with Sansa, she went through a huge transformation. She went from being so annoyingly oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking
Like
for?
girly and prissy and crybaby.
Yeah, and very like she was taken advantage of easily. She was
Delicate.
Yeah, to being just a very, very strong character. She was very jaded. Well, you know, obviously with everything that happened to her. So it made a bigger statement to me when she stepped out in that black.
Yeah.
So I liked it better.
I did like the feathers.
Yeah.
She did like these, because she made it herself from whatever she could find. And so she made it from raven feathers. She was stuck in the veil.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool feature.
Yeah.
Although Cersei and her armor...
Just to go against you guys. Cersei, like, she's always had a dark spirit and she's always been evil. And I feel like she came into her own, like, this color, just like she fits into it so well. And it just shows her character more than... I don't like Sansa to be, like, a nasty, dark person, even though, like, that was, like, her character arc, and I just feel like Cersei, like, she just is a dark spirit, so this just kind of encompasses who she is as a character. So for me, I'm going Cersei.
Very cool.
Good point, yeah.
You know, there's so much more you could talk about, even with each individual character. The amount of hours that were put into every costume, whether it's a main character or people on the streets. They have a team of dedicated, at least 10 people who actually go through and weather and wear these clothes and sweat in them and roll around the dirt. They use them to create this realism that I feel like it's something that you don't always notice because they do it so right. It's not something that you point out, you know, it blends in and it becomes the world, and they do such a great job.
We didn't talk about the pirate world of, like, Theon and Yara, the Greyjoys, just throwing that out there. I mean, they are, like, so, like, the pirate type of clothing.
Perfect.
I love that.
I loved the look of, especially the Blackfish. How, you know, he wore his armor looked like fish scales.
Yes.
You know, everyone kind of has their own identity, and that's kind of, you don't see people wearing the same things because there is no just store where you can all buy the same outfit. Everything's like intricately made for just you. If you can afford it, you go to a tailor and they pick out the cloth and they cut it for you, and everything's pleated just for you. That's a couple of more honorable mentions. Trystane, I think, was the best dressed in Dorne.
Yeah.
Oberyn was really well dressed. He had those sun spots.
He's
in the
another
armor.
one that they dress sort of feminine.
Anemone.
Yes,
Anemone.
But he wore it very masculine. Like they had the oranges and they like sort of tied to his body. But he also would wear armor that like let him be like sort of a water dancer, like well on his feet.
Sure. Another honorable mention would be Varys. Lord Varys, he always wore, earlier on before he became kind of an outcast, he wore these robes that I couldn't tell if it was like draped over the left or over the right. You know what I mean? Every robe, it looked like it was like a crisscross.
Yeah.
And the way he wore it, it was just so unique.
With his hands, they went in.
And his hands would always just disappear.
Yeah.
And his counterpart also, Littlefinger, I have to mention, he's my favorite. And he's just so dapper.
He is very well dressed. Yes, he's a very well dressed man.
Minimalistic, you know, with his own little mockingjay by the neck, and he wears capes so well.
It's very clean cut.
I gotta tell you,
he's always hiding something under that cape, though.
He's hiding secrets
man.
under there. That's where he hides his whispers. Well, we could go on and on, but we can't. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We're out of time today. But it was really cool to highlight some of the really fun outfits that these people wear and the versatility and the range that every character has. Guys, it was fun talking fashion with you today.
Definitely. And did you have Michelle Clapton? Is she like the one who creates all the costumes?
Michelle
you looked
Clapton
up her.
she was
very well dressed as well.
Well, you know what's funny about that is most costume designers, they don't actually
dress nicely.
They dress.
That's hilarious.
They throw something on, and I talked to a lot of costume designers being on set and stuff for different projects, and they're all just like, I just wear the same black thing every day. I don't care. Like, that's interesting. You shape the narrative of an entire universe, and
because
yet
they're too focused on that.
Exactly.
They're like, I can't think about what I'm putting on. Goodness.
Credit where credit's due. Michelle Clapton, you did an amazing job, and everyone at the Game of Thrones production just, mwah!
Yes.
You get our AfterBuzz TV stamp of approval.
Yes.
Guys, where can we keep up with you after this show?
You guys can follow me. I'm Kristen Elizabeth Snyder at Cinematic Escape on all the social mediums. Cinematic Escape.
Cinematic
One word.
Escape.
That's a good one. I
Zia.
am. You can find me on Instagram only, actually, at Zia_land.
Zealand.
Zealand.
Very cool.
I like it.
And I'm Ryan Malaty. You can follow me everywhere at Ryan Malaty, Instagram, Twitter, yada yada. And then also, guys, please subscribe so you don't miss another one. We'll be back again next month, the last Thursday of every month until the show comes back and we can do season 8. Give us a thumbs up if you like our video and you like what you see. And until we meet again, Vara Magules.
Bye bye, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.